the site. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Amber. Oh, you're muted. It happens to all of us.
Got it. Thank you. Amber Knutson, Assistant Area Wildlife Manager out of the Marshall, Minnesota office. And this is my site, so I'm kind of excited to share it with everybody.
We're excited you're here to share it with us. Eric, I know you're here.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Cronquist. I'm with the Minnesota Zoo. I manage our pollinator conservation programs, including rearing and breeding and releasing of Dakota skippers at the Hole in the Mountain W of A.
Kent.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Kent Solberg, Sustainable Farming Association. I'm the Senior Technical Advisor. I'm also a grazing practitioner.
Perfect. And then we also have Nick Tuft, who is our hidden panel participant. He's our local producer on the project. And we asked him a bunch of questions, and then he wrote up his responses that we're going to share with you today as part of this presentation. He's on his way to the cities, and you know, that's just, we understand a trip to the cities or a field day with us. I mean, it's hard to compete sometimes. So with no further ado, Becky, I'm going to turn it over to you to just give us a little bit more of an introduction to the Prairie Reconstruction Initiative, and we're going to jump right in. So I hope everybody has their popcorn and their Raisinets and whatever other snacks. If you think Raisinets are gross, that's fine. Like, we're ready and excited.
Okay, well, really quickly, I'll just give you a brief intro or overview of the Prairie Reconstruction Initiative. So we're a collaborative PRI community of practice, if you will, that is comprised of individuals from over 30 conservation organizations, agencies, and private landowners. I think we're up to over 200 folks that have signed up that are interested in PRI and all of our activities. And basically our mission is to build an engaged community of practice. So that's all of us who work together to overcome uncertainties through all phases of prairie reconstruction. Ultimately, I think we can all agree we're striving for our prairie reconstructions to be biologically diverse, ecologically functional, resist invasion by non-native plants, and cost-effective to manage. So that's the technical side of it, but really what we're here for is to learn together, to collaborate, and we do this by using a variety of tools. Hopefully many of you have been introduced to the monitoring protocol that was rolled out about a year or so ago. We're working viciously on the database to get that updated and rolled out for this spring. But we also love to engage our community of practice through other forms of information sharing, webinars. We have a website, and then field days, of course, like this one. And of course, this is a little different than how we generally engage out on the land, but we hope that this will still be a fun and a great day of learning. And I just have to throw in there, I think that this field day that you're going to hear about today is kind of the epitome of what PRI stands for. You're going to hear from all kinds of folks with differing backgrounds, all expertise in different areas, and they're working together and they're learning together while doing. And so I am super excited to hear and to learn what they're all learning right there with each other on the ground at Hole in the Mountain. So Megan, I'll turn it back to you to kick us off.
Thanks, Becky. Gosh, no pressure, right? now we got to do a great job. So just to kick us off and get us familiar with one of the tools that we're going to use, I put a Padlet link into the chat. And so if you want to go to that link, we're just kind of getting you ready. I know it's 8 o'clock and we're getting you ready to talk and engage. So if you click that link in the chat, it is going to take you to this Padlet board that I'm now sharing. And we just want to start out with what are you excited to learn about today? You can add photos, you can type, or you can draw. And the way that you do that is you click on this little plus in the lower right-hand corner, and then you should be able to add anything. And if you feel comfortable doing so, you can sign like your name to it, because otherwise everybody's just anonymous. So if you want to be anonymous, that's okay. We're not going to pressure you on a Thursday. But we'll just take a couple minutes here to see what folks are excited to learn about today to make sure you're in the right training. If you say something we're not going to cover, you got to leave. Just kidding. You can stay. Like this one already. Excited to learn about how so many people are collaborating. It's true. This is a huge project with a lot of players. You can also interact with other people's comments. Like if you like something that somebody wrote, you can click like. I didn't give you a rating scale. You can comment on it. So this is just a nice way that you can connect with each other. And this Padlet stays open during the whole training. So if you started a conversation in here and you're somebody who can only pay attention by dual tasking, you have this ability to do that while we're while we're showing you the videos and other things.
Good boy.
And the other thing I will ask you to do, I know now I'm asking you to dual task on purpose. If you want to type into the chat your name and your role and your organization, that would be awesome, just so other people that you're going to engage with today kind of know who's in the crowd. And I know that's always strange in a virtual setting. So, and I'll start so you don't feel like you have to be the first person to sit.
Sit.
Well, I am sitting,
Sit.
but I don't want to. No, I'm just kidding.
Sit.
Somebody's got a
No.
dog who.
Oh my God.
Good boy.
Lots of great responses here. Excited to learn more about Prairie. Looking forward to hearing timelines on the database opening. Yeah, we might not cover that too much today, but we can ask Amanda to speak to it a little bit. Excited to learn about brome control. Excited to see a hole in the mountain. Oh, you've never visited. You have to go. Perfect. Pollinator habitat info, learn about grazing and livestock, fit into prairie management. A picture, yay, bees. Look at that pollen load. That's nice. Okay, I'm gonna switch over to the video. Feel free to keep typing in here because, like I said, this Padlet stays live. And so if you want to dual task or you want to come back to this, you're more than welcome to do that. I'm going to reshare my screen so that you can get computer audio. And we're gonna launch into our very first video, which features Amber. The cows. Good job. Okay, I'm going to drop that down. So I apologize. One of the challenges with this virtual mode is that when I share the video, I can't mute myself. So when we practiced yesterday, I did my best to hold my breath so you don't hear me like heavy breathing over the videos. So I will do my best to do that again today also. So we're going to jump into this first one. Be thinking of your questions. Feel free to type them into the chat. Don't forget to type who you are in the chat too, just so folks can better connect with you and know who all's here. And if you're from a different state, go ahead and identify that also. I don't want to be Minnesota centric and assume that it's all Minnesota folks. Okay, and what I'm going to ask Paul is for you to give me a thumbs up if you can hear computer audio. And then I will probably turn my camera off while this is going on. And so if somebody else, there is a glitch that happens, and I do want to mention this. Sometimes the audio drops in the middle of the video. Don't worry, one of our PRI team members will let me know that that happened. I'll pause, reshare, and we'll be on our merry way. Okay, here we go.
Hey everybody, we're out here at Hole in the Mountain Wildlife Management Area and we have got an exciting story to tell you today. It's a story about prairie, who doesn't love prairie, about partnership, and also about people working together and learning from each other. This is a unique opportunity where we've got a huge complex of remnant prairie just under a section of land. We've got 3 small restoration plots out here also that we're trying to make as diverse as possible so that they can complement the remnant prairie that we have on site. so we brought together a whole bunch of different partners from the Sustainable Farming Association, the Division of Fish and Wildlife at the DNR, the Division of Ecological and Water Resources, and then we've also got a fantastic grazer that we're working with to try to figure out how can we make prairie as resilient as possible. And then on top of all of that, while we're trying to figure out how to fold grazing into this system, we decide, you know what would be neat? This would be a great site to release 500 Dakota skippers, a rare butterfly, back out onto the prairie by partnering with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the Minnesota Zoo. Talk about partnerships making prairie work. That's a whole lot that we've got to unveil for you today. We hope you enjoy it, and we hope you learn a lot.
We're out here today at Hole in the Mountain Prairie. It's a site we manage. It's almost a section is just under at 500 and some odd acres. I don't have it off the top of my head out here, but and we're managing it with grazing and fire to just kind of bring back diversity out here and help the prairie be more resilient, increase diversity, and just make it better for not only just the deer and the pheasants that may be out here, but all the way down to our nice little Dakota skippers that we introduced here recently. Patch burn grazing is just what it is. We have this unit split up into 4 different paddocks, and every year we burn another paddock of it or unit of it, and then the cows are left out to have full control, full grazing pressure across the site, but mostly they focus on the patch that we burn that spring. And the reason for that is the grass is really green and flesh, so the cows like to eat that. It's the most nutritious. And then as they chew that down, they'll wander off to a different spot until that grass will come back up. So it's like managing the cows without the internal fencing. That I want this site to still maintain the openness and not have the cross fencing. So management prior to me coming to Marshall in 2012 was very, very minimal. Out here, it was just left to be prairie, and brome and bluegrass were taken over. So we needed to start doing something. But we have busy Highway 75 right behind me. We have another county road on the south, and then we have Lake Benton and Verdi just down to the southwest here. So the topography and the way the wind blows through some of these little gullies, it'll just bring the smoke out into areas where we don't necessarily want it. So as far as safety, we're looking at people and we're looking at the public around. So we're managing on a smaller scale, but the cattle kind of give us that whole other dynamic that we need and we don't always get on a full prairie burn. Little prairie plantings we have out here are former CFA food plots from previous years' management, and it's just getting to the point where we're going away from that. We're getting the diverse prairie, which provides better habitat for the wildlife. So with planting these food plots back down, we're looking at a more diverse prairie mix. The CFA food plots that we have out here on site were planted in 2019 using a Vicon, and they were planted while the cows are out on site, so the cows help trample the seed right into the soil, help establish the prairie. And we're seeing the seeds coming up now. It's still looking a little ugly, but we have the diversity there. We're seeing what I planted, so it's been kind of fun. Our units out here are 4 different similar size paddocks, so it goes across the remnant and the reconstructed all together, so they're not really separated out. Similar management regimes. It didn't really change our management strategy. Talking with the zoo, they were more interested in how we're managing, and they were interested in like the results of it and wanted to see how that's gonna further affect and promote the habitat for the Dakota skipper. We're just bringing in that greater diversity that's not always seen on the remnants anymore. So hopefully in the future we can start getting some of that flood over from the reconstruction up here onto the remnant. I did include species that were specific to the skipper, just knowing that there's a possibility that they could come out here into the future, which is now. I included a lot of shortgrass species along with echinacea for the skippers because that's what they prefer to eat. The shortgrasses, especially when they're a larvae, the echinacea when they're a butterfly.
Great job, Amber. That is our first video. And so now that brings us to the Q&A portion. So if you have some questions, please type those into the chat or raise your hand. And if it takes a little while for folks to get talking, oh, not because Chris already raised his hand. Thanks, Chris. I was going to say we do have some questions that we prepared just in case you need a little boost. Chris, go ahead. It's all you. Oh, you're muted. Or maybe you're muted. Let me see here. I'm going to see if there's anything I can do to help. You're at the very end of the alphabet. You have to scroll all the way down. If we can't get it working, we'll just have you type your question in the chat, which isn't as much fun. Or you could mime it if you felt like doing that. You do this for cow. No, just kidding. Yeah, I'm not sure how to make people's audio work from here. I checked to see if you were muted on my end, and you're not. I know. You know too. You're figuring it out. Okay, I'm gonna while Chris is leaving and he's gonna come back in, I'm gonna go to Jessica. So Jessica, do you want to give voice to your question, or do you want me to read it for you?
Do I have capability to talk?
You do!
So you said that you use the cattle to trample down the seed. And so I was just wondering, what was the timing of spreading the seed to when the cattle came in? Like, did you do it right away? Did you do a winter seed? Did a spring seed? Like, when was the seed in versus, and then the cows?
Well, actually, we did two different methods. The two southern food plots that had the most growing time on them, as this video, was done while the cattle were out there. So they were kind of even following around our little Vicon unit. So it was kind of fun to watch that. But then the other unit right on the east by the road was seeded in the fall. So we got some snow cover on it, and the cattle were put on there the same time, like in the spring. So it had a little rest before the cattle were able to trample that site in. It'll be interesting to see how the two different methods work too. So just another little experiment added to this site.
Because we don't have enough, right?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna show a little.
So can I follow up of when, so if the cows were out there while you seeded, what time of year was that then?
The southern two food plots down in 4 and 3B that Megan's got on the map there, you can kind of sort of see them. They were seeded in June with the Vicon. And then the one over in Unit 2 was seeded in December of last year. The 2 and 4 and 3B were seeded in June of 2019, so we had a little bit of a lag. Did that answer your question?
Yep, I was writing down the notes. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, good. We've got lots of questions coming in. Molly, do you want to give voice to your question? I should say last names too. Molly Tranel.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Not want to unmute me. Maybe I should take that as a sign. Amber, I was wondering just a little bit more about like the number of species of forbs versus grasses, and especially if you had any like cool season grasses like June grass and whatnot, and then also how you sourced your seed, if it was purchased or that kind of thing.
I'll have to do a little digging to find out what my seed mix was. I didn't have that readily available this morning for you, Molly.
Ooh, I stumped you.
You did.
Sorry about
But
that.
it was a combination of source seed and some of our native harvest.
Okay.
So, and
I'm just always curious what other seed mixes are, because it's so hard sometimes to get what you want. And so.
Yep. And I work pretty extensively with Megan. She goes through these and says, yes, this is something you want. This is something you don't. So she makes sure I get something from all growing periods. So there's a lot of like earlier season. I have June grass and Calms brome and stuff like that in there.
Yeah.
Some of the little sedges. And
yeah, that answers the question then.
Okay. Yep.
Molly, I can even do you one better. I just grabbed Amber's seed mix.
You can send it to
Look
me.
at
That's
that.
awesome.
Look at this. Look at this
Thank you.
virtual skills.
There it is.
This
Okay.
is just one. So this is one batch, and there's a second batch as well. And I'll just kind of leave that up on the screen so you can look at it. And then I'll bring up, there's a second one that was used also for Hole in the Mountain.
Cool.
Yeah, we got them from 2 different vendors, so that's why they were split up.
That is the DNR way.
There you go. So I'll just leave that kind of on the screen. I'll scroll to grasses in a minute so you can see it. Callie, you have a question, and it might be a question actually that I might ask you to keep in your back pocket for now, because in our monitoring module, I know I'm going to make you wait. That's so mean of me. In our monitoring module, we're going to talk about this a little bit more. And it's a perfect question, like, have the cool season grasses been reduced? And I'm hoping that Dustin will speak more to that when we get to that module. Becky, do you want to give voice to your question?
Sure. My name is Becky Marty. I'm with the Minnesota DNR Regional College, just like Megan. And I was just curious. I think I know the answer by now, but please, if you could restate it, how long had you been working on this project with the vision of the seeding and the cattle, and sort of beyond that? I mean, you've started it. When did you start it, and how long do you anticipate doing that? Which then translates to my second question, which is sort of, what are you measuring and what are you defining as success?
Okay. First question, how long has this project been going on? I started in 2012 in the Marshall office, and this was like my first, here you go, figure out what to do on this prairie. So it just kind of evolved from there, and I went to some workshops and stuff and kind of got like a glimmer of hope of what to do. So we rolled with that. We got cows out there in 2018, and then the seedings were in 2019 and 2020. So it's been a couple of years. And then definition of success out here, I think just seeing a greater diversity amongst the prairie species, which it seems to me we already are. Just our footprints on the ground, we're seeing that. But Dustin can give us more information when he gets to the monitoring. I just want to see a reduction in cool seasons. I know we're not going to get rid of them completely, but just a reduction in cool seasons, the non-native cool seasons.
And I'll also add, I'm cheating. I'm facilitating and answering questions. But I'm going to cheat and add that we really want to see the overall health of the prairie improve. And Becky, your question is also good. Like, how on earth do you measure that? And so we have got a lot of monitoring going on. And like Amber said, we're sort of teasing at it because that'll come up in module 3, where we show all of the different ways that we're measuring and hopefully getting some good information that we can share. Melvin, do you want to give voice to your question?
Sure. So I guess I was wondering about how long the patch burn grazing has been going on, and then sort of tied to that, are you seeing issues with cattle kind of going back to the same places every year, regardless of the burn status, and maybe overgrazing sort of the preferred or candy plants to their detriment, to where you would want to maybe exclude them for a season?
This site has only been patch burn grazed since 2018. And in 2020, we didn't get the burn done, so we had to alter our tactics a little bit on that, which I think kind of skewed a little bit of our information as far as what the cattle had preference to. We went to more of a rotational system in 2020, but then we were back to patch burn grazing this last year in Unit 2. So the first year we burned Unit 1. The cattle preferred to sit down in the southwest corner of Unit 4. I don't know if that was wind driven or just the cooler wet area. I'm not sure why the cattle preferred that. But then once the patch started greening back up, they moved back to Unit 1 to the patch and sat there and grazed it down. And then they moved off the patch until it grew up enough again, and the patch just kept bringing them back. They had the affinity to come back to the patch as it grew up throughout the season. The second year and that was 2019, we burned unit 4. They like to sit on unit 1 because that was, again, the regrowth, but then they would go down to unit 4 and focus on that patch. So the patch ultimately really did drive some of the cattle movements out here. Last year, we seen them sitting on unit 2 a lot in that patch, but with the drought, it was just kind of hard to tell what they were doing out there. So
Yeah, it seemed like they did like to go down to unit 3 quite a bit. There's a dugout down there that they were hanging out in a lot while I was doing field work out there this year or during the drought. In terms of your other question, I think I can jump in, Amber, for the plant stuff they've been after. They have been grazing pretty evenly over the burn unit. And so when they target areas like that, they graze pretty evenly, especially because it's all new growth due to the fire that happened in the spring. So I've been pretty pleased with how they're kind of hitting everything and not selecting species as much like they would if it was just open grazing with no fire that happened. I think they might be a little more selective during that second year. They seem to go back to the thing that was burned last year and do a little grazing. I think they might be a little more selective in that. But in terms of the patch that was burned that year, they seem to keep it grazed down pretty well and evenly. Is that your impression, Amber?
yeah, that was my impression. And then, like you're saying, that they had the little affinity to that unit 3 because of the dugout. We actually had to run a fence down to include that dugout just for watering capabilities. Otherwise, unit 2 doesn't have any water.
Perfect. I'm just going to do a quick check. Chris, are you back, and do you have sound? I guess if you don't have sound, you can't tell me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Okay, you can ask your question now. That'd be great.
Yeah, my apologies. You'll never invite me back again between not being muted and answering a phone call a while ago. I don't know if that came through, and then this little debacle. But anyway, yeah, you really struck my curiosity when you had said something about the cattle helping with the seeding by stomping the seed in the ground. So what was the site prep there when you seeded it? Had you burned it off? Was there residual vegetation? Could you just describe that a little bit?
Those are retired food plots, so it was just a corn bean rotation prior to that. And then we just seeded into the bean stubble. So there was probably a little bit of vegetation left from the bean stubble.
Yeah, the bean stubble's awesome for seeding in for everybody that's done that. So I thought maybe I missed that part. I thought maybe that was some existing cool season or something like that, because we've done stuff. I was some of our private land staff have done things where they've seeded into cool season conversions with grazers and not get a lapse in some of their grazing time. They've used the cattle to graze down extremely tight as their site prep, overstocked it to the nth degree. So I was kind of curious. Appreciate that.
No, that's great. And you'll always be invited back. People being real people is totally fine with us. We don't expect you to be a robot.
Just don't ask anything about me with Paul Charlin and we'll be fine.
Now for our coffee break, we'd like to hear more about Paul, Charlin, and Chris. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Okay, I'm going back in here. Let's see. So Amanda, I'm going to say your question. I'm not going to do it in an Amanda voice, but I see you don't have your mic today. So Amber, could you describe some more about the patch burn grazing? How big are the patches? Do they vary? And I'm showing the map again just so folks can see this here. Because everything in orange, I know I'm not showing you the key to this map, which would be helpful, right? I'm just trying to make it bigger for you. Everything in orange is patch burn graze now, and these other blue units were broken off into adaptive. Go for it, Amber.
Yeah, so pretty similar size. Unit 1 and Unit 2 are slightly bigger just because Unit 3 had to get broke up with the adaptive grazing. We're experimenting out here with another sort of management. So we're just trying something new, I guess. The 145 up in Unit 1, there's a lot of low wet ground right where it's labeled, so the cows don't really have much for forage out there. I tried to break them up as per like the upland, more of what the cows are going to be willing to eat versus the wet stuff. So that's why you see the different paddock sizes there. The little fields you see excluded are still food plots, like right in the center where Megan's pointing out, and then that little moon-shaped one up on the north central, that's another food plot. And those are currently corn bean, but we're looking to go to a more wildlife friendly, even something that the cattle can graze through later into the year possibly too. We're just, it's all an experiment out here, and we're trying to do better for the land, both for the producers, the neighboring producer that I have out here, and for the wildlife. So
absolutely. I mean, I should have said this. These are acres numbers. So acres, you can see, yeah, you can see they're a little bit different in size and shape. Henry, would you like to give voice to your question?
Sure. Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Great. I was curious, it sounds like, and I'm assuming that fire was used sometime even before 2012, but certainly afterwards as an initial management tool. And I was curious if you could speak to changes you observed at this site on the locations that the cattle have been introduced to, and what changes you've seen since they were introduced to the site.
There's actually not been much for fire on this site. Even prior to 2012, I think I only found record of one wildland fire in the early 2000s that burned up in that Unit 1 area. So it's just mostly sad fallow, farmer terms, fallow for the year. We got it in 91, and they really didn't do anything. They managed the food plots out here and seeded down a couple of little areas, and that was about it. So as far as fire after 2012, we only had one, and that was on that east unit. You can kind of see just on the north side or top side of that map, it's about 100 acres, and that was done in 2014. Otherwise, everything else has been just based around the patch burn graze.
Perfect. And then Cammie asked, oh, Cammie, never mind. I don't need to talk for you. Go ahead and give voice to your question.
I'd be grateful if you talked for me, but my question is, does the Minnesota DNR or others have a mix that they are using specifically when they're trying to provide Dakota skipper habitat?
Yeah, I can take that one, Amber, if you want me to. No, we don't. We don't have a specific mix in the sense that like one that we would use again and again, or say like this is our packaged Dakota skipper mix. But we do, when we're seeding in areas where we think that it is possible that we will get Dakota skippers, or in this case became a reality that we got Dakota skippers, we're working with our invertebrate ecologists to make sure we include the species that they like, and to also make sure that we include the structural components that they need. So oftentimes you might see a seed mix that's pretty heavy with big blue stem or Indian grass. And so some of the things we try to do in our seed mixes here is really make them short grass focused, do the extra work of hand seeding porcupine grass and other things that skippers just absolutely love to eat when they're a larvae. And then we went higher on certain forbs that we know that are critical to their life cycle, echinacea being one of those, otherwise known as purple coneflower. And so we, it's not, I hope this makes sense what I'm trying to say. It's not like a mix that we would create and then be like, aha, we will use this everywhere we have Dakota skippers, because most of our mixes that our wildlife managers create are tailored specifically to the site conditions. But we would take those same considerations into account anytime there's a potential for a Dakota skipper. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Got it. Ooh, Pauline asked a great question, and I'm not going to answer it because it's going to be explained in the next video. So I'm cheating again. Okay, let's see. We go down. Oh boy, Troy's got a question for you. It's probably going to be a tough one, Amber. No, I'm just kidding. Chris and Troy, Chris, do you want to go first? Because then Troy's question builds off of Chris's question. Or did you already? No.
Sure, I'm back.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious about your stocking rates. Like I said, we haven't been doing anything with grazing on our lands here in Missouri, but the state has, and the state of Iowa has, that for two different purposes. Missouri was grazing to their prairies to try to increase structural diversity, specifically for quail. But they got some amazing species diversity and structural diversity increases with their grazing. And then Iowa was grazing some of their prairies in southern Iowa to control cool season grasses, and their stocking rates were quite different to do that. They were very high, while Missouri was using a light stocking rate of 1 animal unit per 7 acres. So I'm just curious what your stocking rates were, and if you had any logic or reasoning behind those stocking rates.
Stocking rates started in 2018 when we patch burn grazed the whole site, and we were at about 100 cow-calf pair for the whole unit. So the unit was, let me see my notes, 475 acres that were grazed. That's excluding the food plots. So that equals out to what, like 4.5 acres per cow, I think is what it is. So
nice, happy medium there.
Yep. And we reduced the stocking rate since we put those two little southern ends down into the adaptive grazing. The cows are excluded from that for a portion of it. That's a different grazing regime. So this patch burn graze is now at 70 cow-calf pairs, which I think is still right around that 4 acres.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Troy, do you want to give voice to your question? I like when there's like these moments of silence because it's like fills the anticipation. You just don't know what's going to happen. Always makes me think of Titanic. Anyone alive out there?
Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Fifth time's the charm, I think. Yeah, no, so I was just thinking about what Chris was mentioning about site prep on some of the other restoration fields that we did earlier. And it got me thinking, I don't know why I haven't mentioned this to you before, but have you thought, or what are the goals for the rest of the open patches? Have you thought about trying to use cattle and going in on some of the bare patches, like right after they come in or right before they come in even, or during the dormant season, and interseeding some of your more critical prairie species and using the cattle to get that seed to soil contact?
Are you referring to like the native prairie or where we restored?
The native.
The native. Well, the native's been kind of good, but Megan and I have discussed even doing some hand harvest of the species that are out there, and then just interseeding with that into some of those bare areas after the burn and the cattle have gone through there. But time hasn't really been on my side to do that.
Yeah, that's what I was mainly focusing on, thinking about was just the more bare open patches and trying to fill some of that and create some competition so you reduce some of the thistle coming in or anything.
Thistle really hasn't been an issue. It was just that first year when Troy, you and I were out there and chopping it down with our little weed saws. But after that, it hasn't been an issue on the native patches. It's been pretty short. Dustin can probably give us a little more insight onto the thistle on the native prairie. I know in the patches we reseeded, it's really bad. It looks really ugly. It's a complete thistle overstory, but there's so many natives coming up underneath that I'm not going to go in there and spray it off or anything. That's, again, another research project that Megan's monitoring. So
we know pretty definitively from a lot of good research that came out of Iowa, from Pauline Drobny and others, that if you just give the restorations time and they're diverse enough, the thistle problem can kind of take care of itself. Thistle, and Kent's going to like this, it is a response to a broken carbon nitrogen cycle in the soil. And so the longer we can work to correct that and give the prairie rest in the sense that we're not disturbing that soil, like with tillage or with spray or something else. We've seen thistle drop out after about 5 years. It's still there. It's still on the site. Like, I don't want to oversell it, but it doesn't look like what it looks like now, where Amber's describing. It's a complete thistle overstory, but you go underneath that in these restorations, and we had 40, 50 species that we were counting in our plots. And so I feel pretty comfortable and confident that with enough time, that thistle problem is going to take care of itself. Justin, did you have something you wanted to add?
No, I think you got it, Megan. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. We have time for one more question, and then it's already time for a break. This is going to be such a fun day. I love it. And Amber gets to take a little respite and not be in the hot seat for just a little.
I like it. This has been fun.
It's fun. So Brandon, do you want to give voice to the first part of your question? The second part of your question I'll leave for our third module.
Uh-oh, now I have to find my question again to get the part. Sorry. And I know you said that you did a lot of this from a soybean prep, so maybe you don't have some of these issues. I'm sorry, Megan, where was the first part of my question? There it is. Okay, so it sounded like you were using your neighbor's cattle, and I was just curious if that allowed for later season grazing and what the effects of that might be.
It would allow for later season grazing, but currently we haven't been doing anything later than Labor Day weekend just because of some of the hunting pressure out here and the locals' attitudes towards grazing. It's something we're working into. So I'm hoping with more of the adaptive grazing, we could do a little bit of the later stuff and see how that goes. Trying to play both sides where we're helping out the landscape, the habitat, the grazer, as well as the hunting community too.
Yeah, we probably should have mentioned that with both of these models, cattle are out there for the full season. So Amber, when do they come on? They usually come on to Hole in the Mountain in
early May is when it has been. Our fires have been usually early May, so the cattle are there within the week right after our fire.
And they stay there until September. This year we did pull them off a little bit earlier just because of drought effects and some other things that you're going to see and learn about here in a moment. So it is time for a break. Amber, if you feel comfortable and you get a break. But when you come back from the break, if you want to look at these questions in the chat that didn't get answered and type some responses back, that would be totally fine. Also at the end, if we have extra time, we might revisit some of these. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go on mute. I'm going to stop this recording because we're going to do these in batch recordings. Oop.